Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talking Cardboard. As always, my name is Cory, and I am joined today by special guest, my wife, Amanda.
Hey.
And as always, if you like the content you see here on the channel, please consider subscribing. We'd really appreciate it. And on today's review, we are reviewing the game, The Lost Ruins of Arnak. Okay, and like we said, we are reviewing The Lost Ruins of Arnak today, an exploration game that has kind of that Indiana Jones style to not only the artwork, but the overall theme of the game. Starting with our pros, I'm going to start with Amanda on this one. What did you like about this game?
My first pro is that it's a deck building game. I really enjoyed that. We don't play a lot of them. We have a few, but I don't feel like it's your favorite.
Not my favorite genre anymore,
Yeah.
but there really hasn't been a whole lot of deck building that's come out recently.
And it's kind of unique in a way where then when you pick cards, you don't just shuffle them all into your deck. You just shuffle that and put it at the bottom of your deck, which
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to like, but I actually, going through the game and playing the game, I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique twist to deck building. It's not your generic deck building where you're really flying through and buying a lot of cards to add to your deck, shuffle through and redraw a bunch and overcycling it, plenty of times throughout the game. This has really that unique twist, like Amanda said, where you are only adding a couple cards every so often to your deck, but they go right to the bottom of your deck.
Yep.
So you're drawing them right away. So I like that too.
Yep.
Over to me, I guess with my first pro is the artwork. I mean, the artwork just stands out. Everything from the theming and the landscape to the card artwork to the board. The board is beautiful. It's a double-sided board that has similar artwork on each side.
Yep.
I guess that kind of rolls into my next pro as well, is that both sides of the board are different. There's an easy side and a hard side of the board, so I like that variability in the game.
Yeah, so did I. There's not a lot that changes on the hard side. There's only a few areas on there, but it actually changes up the game quite a bit.
Yeah, for how little it changed it,
Yeah.
it really changed the overall feel a lot. And kind of to get into that a little bit, it just made some of the spots to travel to a little bit more difficult. It made the research tracks a little bit harder to get up, which I like the most from the hard side versus the easy side, because I felt like on the easy side, it was just so easy to get to the top of the temple and just to get all those extra bonus points very easily. And that hard side to the board really made it that much more tight and a little bit more of a struggle to get to the top.
Yeah.
And kind of to piggyback off of what Amanda said a little bit earlier, kind of buying the cards to your deck. There are a couple different options for buying cards. There are more of the tool cards, and the other side of them are the artifact cards, which are blue or tan. The really cool thing about the artifact cards is that when you buy those, you're actually using the effect on the card right away and playing it out to your play area. So that's kind of a unique twist to deck building too, that you don't see very often, where you can actually buy a card and use its ability right away, whereas the other side of the coin are the tool type, or I forget the other type of cards, but those are more of where you're just adding those to the bottom of your deck.
Yeah.
So it is kind of cool where there's the two different sides of buying cards to the game.
Yeah, what I really enjoyed is going out and exploring, and then the temple bonuses coming out, and then getting those resources right away, and then having the monster come out, or
The Guardian.
The Guardian come out and defeating that. So you could either defeat it or you could run away from it.
Yeah, at the end of the round, running away will
Yeah.
get you a fear card, which not only clogs up your deck, but also gives you -1 point per card at the end of the game.
Yep.
But yeah, I really like that too. I really agree that it's fun to see what temple turns over and what resources you get right away before any of the other players can get it. But another cool thing and another unique twist to that too is that becomes a new worker placement spot for other players in the future, or
which
yourself.
I always forgot about, but yeah.
Yep. So that really opens up that many more options for worker placement locations that you can go to. And like Amanda said too, so a lot of the time we did forget that those were even locations to go to. And they are kind of expensive, having to spend compasses every time to explore it.
Yeah.
But a lot better than the basic locations in the start of the game. The other pro I have for the game is how tight the game is and how tight the gameplay is. So many different options you can do in only a 5-card hand, and you don't replenish your hand as the round goes.
Yeah.
Once you use a card, it did is done for the whole round. So you really need to be careful that you're not playing too quickly into something that you didn't really necessarily want to get, or it wasn't really maximizing your turn as well as you could. You need to kind of slow play once in a while. But other times you're forced to fast play to get in front of your opponents for something different too. So the game strategy was really tight, and I felt like there was that constant struggle to fight over certain things.
And plan your hand, and then if your opponent does something that you want to do, having to rethink on what you're going to do and replan your next move.
Which adds a little bit of tactical strategy to the game too. It wasn't the end of the world if like Amanda took one of the spots that I wanted. There's other ways to mitigate that and other ways around that, which was really neat as well.
Another pro for me is the options. There seems to be multiple different options. Like Cory was saying, if your opponent were to do something you want to do, there's probably a different way for you to go around. It might be more expensive, or you might have to gain other money or
compasses. But that's kind of the price you pay for not taking that spot earlier.
Right away, so I did like that there was multiple options to choose from.
And I guess let's just roll that into teachability or ease of play. Did you feel like it was an easy game to learn overall, or was it difficult?
Yeah, actually, when you pulled it out at first, I was a little nervous. There was
a lot of pieces.
It looked like a big setup, but it really wasn't. And I thought it was once you started playing and once you did your first round, it got pretty easy after that. Yeah.
And what about like complexity or weight of the game after you learned it and knew what you were doing? Did it feel complex? Like, do you think you could teach this to non-gamers, or do you think this is more of like a gamer style game?
I guess it depends. I mean, I think non-gamers might not be into it, but they might like the theme of the game. Like you said, the artwork is pretty neat and done really well. But
appreciate the theme more than the mechanisms.
I mean, I think obviously they need to start off with something easier, but I enjoy the game, and I think it's easy to teach.
And I agree, it's a middleweight game for the most part, a middleweight Euro. Definitely not one to start with for like a non-gamer, but if you've dabbled with games at least for a little while, I think it's an easy game to understand and get into quite easily. So rolling into our cons, to kind of piggyback off what we were talking about a little bit earlier with our pros, one of my cons is the exploration is really neat and really cool, but I feel like this game warrants an expansion already. Like, I feel like I just want more cards to come up, more different temples and different guardians to come up. I feel like after a few plays, you've kind of seen everything. We've explored all the different artifact cards, the different item cards already. I feel like there are a couple here and there that we haven't seen come up, but for the most part, we've already played it, 3 times or so. And I just feel like that's one of the things that I can already see as being a con to add to replayability.
I just feel like with your con, though, there's many options you can take with those. I mean, you always can't use the same card. If your opponent gets it before you get it, then you have to go a different route than what you were thinking.
But that feeling of exploration, I think, is hindered a little bit after a few plays. I think exploring new locations would be kind of cool eventually. I just don't feel like we explored as much as we could throughout the game. I mean... Well, it's not always advantageous to explore all the time, and sometimes it's not really advantageous to even beat the Guardian. You might want to just take that Fear card instead of wasting all those resources on the Guardian, because we found that going up on the Temple track is really, really nice to get those extra bonus points. Those are a lot of points.
Yeah, but when you defeat the Guardian, you get that 5 victory points at the end. So I mean, I think it's just depending on what route you're going to go. If you're going to...
Kind of balances out a little bit.
Yeah, if you're going to explore more, it might have been a different game.
What's your biggest con for the game?
I think my biggest con was only having 2 people to I guess...
Two explorers
to move around with. I mean, it works out, but I just feel like I always needed to do one more thing. I always needed to complete one more action, and I didn't have it. And I couldn't pull my guy back. And maybe there was a card in there that we just didn't pull to be able to pull our...
There's a couple.
Yeah. And we didn't get to those. So, I mean, I think that was my biggest con, is just having one more guy to be able to explore with.
Yep. And that kind of adds to the tightness in the game, too. I know other reviews that I've seen online that I've read, some people's con is that it feels like such a short game and that you can't do enough that you wanted to do. I don't know if that kind of plays into it a little bit, but only 2 workers or 2 explorers per round and only 5 rounds in the game. So
Yeah.
really you have 10 workers the entire game to work with, but it's kind of more of how you manipulate those cards to get the most
Yeah.
out of those workers.
Yeah, I do feel like it's hard because I do always want that one more exploration, but I also feel like I did complete a lot, more than I thought I would with my 2 workers.
Yeah. Yep. My next con is kind of similar to the different cards or temples or guardians that I'd like to see in maybe further expansions, but I would really like to see more map or more boards content for this game, because I don't feel like I'd ever really want to go back to playing on the easy side of the board. For me, the difficult side of the board is really where it shined, really where the game came through on feeling the way I thought it was supposed to feel,
Yeah.
and creating that tension that I was looking for. On the easy side of the board, everything was just kind of free will, go and do what you want, and I didn't like that as much.
Yeah. I think my other con, which I really enjoyed this game. I don't have too many cons.
Spoilers for the final rating. You liked it.
Oops.
We don't know what it is yet, though. But.
The fear cards didn't do a ton for me. I mean, I get the concept of having them. I just don't feel like it really affected me winning or losing the game. And I did enjoy having, like, being able to discard a card.
Exile it out of play.
Yeah, exile it. But I don't feel like it did too much. I mean, I do think you need them in there, and I don't know another way to make them more effective.
Yeah.
But
I think most of our games, we each had maybe at most, 7 or 8 fear cards.
Yeah,
and that didn't
I think
really seem
like
like
6, yeah.
6 maybe, and that didn't seem like a big enough point swing to really determine who was going to win the game. But having said that, I think the last time we played, when I won, you definitely had a lot more fear cards than I did, and I don't know if that really played a role in it.
yeah, and that could have. But I also didn't take as many risks as I did the first time.
Yeah.
Not really knowing the game.
Yeah. Coming from like a designer's viewpoint, I really
Yeah.
think the fear cards will open up an opportunity for the designers of this game to really do much more with those fear cards in future expansions, though, too.
Yeah.
Like manipulating it or using them for different things, or maybe there's a corruption track in a future expansion where you can use those fear cards for something.
Well, or being able to give them out. Like,
Yeah.
like maybe a card saying, I can give a fear card to my opponent.
Or take that, like, here you go.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like running away from the Guardians was the only time you received the fear card.
Pretty much. There was some better worker placement spots or better temples that you could go to that would give you a fear card, too.
Yep.
But, I mean, the resources you got for it were super good.
Yeah.
So, of course, you're going to get that. Remind me a little bit of Lords of Waterdeep with the corruption track, getting those skulls when
Yep.
you got the better actions.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I thought it was cool, and I thought it opened up some design space for the designers to do unique things with it in the future.
Yeah, again, I mean, I'm just kind of pulling for...
Trying to find every little thing
that
just
I
because there's not a lot.
disliked, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what's our overall rating? I guess starting with Amanda or starting with me? Do you want to go first?
I can go. I really enjoyed this game. When Cory went home and we pulled it out, I was a little skeptical on it. But I would rate it a 9 out of 10.
Wow. That's really good. And just overall conclusion on why you're giving it a 9 out of 10?
I think it was everything. I think with a theme was really fun. The artwork was great. I did like the options I had, the deck building, that it was a Euro. I love Euro games. I just enjoyed everything. I enjoyed taking like buying cards and then going up on the track and then exploring. I just think there was so many options you could do.
Yeah.
That every play could be different on how you go about trying to win.
Yeah, it really pulled from a lot of different Euro games that we're familiar with
Yeah.
and kind of made it all one big pile of Euro mechanism goodness, I guess.
Yep, having the deck building, which we don't play often, but I do enjoy deck building and being able to control my own hand and what I play.
Yeah, and one of my favorite games of all time, Great Western Trail, kind of feels similar to that, where it's not really deck building, but it's a kind of a unique twist on deck building.
Yeah.
So that this game did it really well too.
Yep.
I guess getting into my overall rating, I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. So still really high, just not quite the 9 or higher. And having said that, I think that this game could really push up to a 9, 9.5, maybe even a 10 out of 10 someday with some expansion content. The things I really liked, like I said, too, to give it that 8.5 out of 10 would be the really tight gameplay. I felt like there was a lot you could do on your turn, but not a ton to do it with. So like the cards, you just really had to manage those really well, and that provided a lot of crunchiness, a lot of complexity in decision making, and I really enjoyed that. The theme, like the Indiana Jones Explorer theme, I mean, we haven't seen that theme thrown around very often either. So that was really refreshing to see. Like I said too, I mean, more expansion content, more things added into this game just to make it more variability in the future would really up this to maybe a 9, 9.5 or higher. We'll have to see. But yeah, 8.5 out of 10, really strong for me so far.
Yeah.
So I agree. I mean, we're right up there together.
Yeah, I think that's great. There is a future for this and adding expansions to it. I mean, that just makes you want to play the game more and over again. And I mean, I know you're kind of saying you wanted more, but I mean, that's the great thing about that. They can add more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like a game that can easily be expanded upon.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised that you're 9 out of 10 for this. I did, when we first brought it to the table, like Amanda said, she kind of looked at it like a lot of pieces, the theme's not really appealing to me, but halfway through I could really see that her brain was turning and trying to maximize your options.
Yeah, and I think it just reminds me of a lot of games that I really love, like Lords of Waterdeep and Great Western Trail, and
obviously the deck building with like Dominion and Star Realm.
Yep, and Stone Age I really love. I just think it was like a great combination of everything, and it was just right up my alley.
Yeah. Well, that does it for today's review of The Lost Ruins of Arnak. And until next time, you all have a great day.
Thanks.